Hello, everybody, to this Shakti dialogue. It's the 28th of October 2020, and I'm Nilima Bhatt, the co author of the book Shakti Leadership. And I'm delighted to have wonderful speakers on this dialogue from time to time. Today, I have Nili Goldfein, who is the Executive Vice President of NGG Global Solutions. She is based out of Tel Aviv in Israel, and she handles business development and marketing. NGG, if I'm not mistaken, is Israel's largest consulting company. And Nili is also a dear friend who I have known for some years now. I think I met you first in 2016, thanks to Yvonne Sum, who introduced us. It's been an utter pleasure and joy to know you, Nili. For those who don't, Nili is a force of nature. That's the only way I can describe her. When Nili decides to do something, it gets done. So here is a real Shakti leader. She embodies Shakti. She's a great model and exemplar for what a Shakti leader looks like and behaves like. So with this, Nili, I'm so delighted to have today's conversation. I know you and I can talk for days, but today let's focus on how do we transform the workplace? We all know that the COVID world has forced workplace transformation upon us anyway, but going forward in a post-COVID world, what is the good that can come out of the way we have had to start working from home, etc.? What, according to you, would be the top 5 things you would leverage when it comes to transforming the workplace?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really delighted to be here. And let's go deep inside the rabbit hole. So I will give a little bit background because I think it's important to see things in connection and get a high level perception before we dive. So I will say in short that before the disruptive organizations came out in the COVID-19, we had the word VUCA in our organizations. The VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. And the whole world was getting kind of mixed up even before the coronavirus times. And after we finished with this VUCA world to change our matters, we had the disruption world coming inside. The disruption world was in the beginning a kind of a business model. That means that somebody, a kind of a company, is coming to a vertical and is changing it upside down. Like for example, we have Uber that came to the transportation vertical and changed it upside down, or the low cost to the flying area, or a Airbnb to the hotels, to tourism. So in each and every vertical, we had a disruptive model that changed it completely. So at the beginning, it was a kind of a business model, but it became a world of disruption because so many things happened that we have the dimension of technology, of globalization, regulation, 5 generations in the same place of work. And each and every one of them really changed us upside down, but it's not only each and every one of these dimensions by himself, they're dancing together to the dimension as a vortex. So we call it today the disruption vortex. And this happened before the coronavirus came. What the coronavirus did is not inventing anything new. It just had a kind of speeding everything that was there before. The technology that we had was there before. The big data was there before. But because we closed the borders and because people are at home, everything that has to do with the balance in between the technology as a remote management and the people that are still in third dimension, it just rapided the change that we are facing in organizations. So we have the remote management and we have the hybrid model of people that are working at home and that are working in the offices. So this is one dimension that really changed very fast, and the coronavirus didn't make it. We were there before. especially in global organizations, but it kind of spit out everything that has to do with it. So we have technology and people. Then we have the reality and the virtual reality. We had the film Matrix 20 years ago that had these philosophical questions of what's real and what is not real. But you and I are talking now, you're in India, I'm in Israel. It's virtual or is it the real world? We are friends and I have friends that I never met. Is it real or is it virtual? We have everything that has to do that is changing the equilibrium in between the virtual world and the real world. That's the second dimension. The third dimension is everything that has to do with the relationship or the psychological contract in between organizations and talent. We had a kind of an agreement in between human beings and organizations that the organization is kind of a community. I would say even a tribe. The individual was kind of a part of this tribe and relying on trust that the organization will take care of him no matter what's going on. And all over the world, people are at home. A lot of people got fired. A lot of people had to change the roles within the organization. A lot of people were cut off salaries. So everything that has to do with the balance in between the organizations and the people as part of communities is changing. And I have to remind you that there is a very big difference in between balance and equilibrium. Balance is something that is stable. Equilibrium is something that is moving all the time. I have a great master, which is by coincidence Indian as well, Bhagwan Rajanish, that he says that every vital thing it's an organism and every dead thing it's an organization. So we cannot speak about balance because balance is dead. We speak about equilibrium, something that is moving all the time, and there is a lot of movements within this organization's talent. The other thing that unfortunately is not always for the best is the balance in between local and global. We were local, all of us. And then in the past, I would say even 20 years, we all became global. We are going everywhere. We meet people everywhere. We're doing business with people everywhere. We have merchandise that are moving through the borders. And now almost everything is locked down. So we had local, we had global, we had glocal, but here again is a new equilibrium because the borders are closed almost everywhere. So we have global and local to think about. And the other dimension is everything that has to do with regulation, or with the interactions in between governments and organizations. Because in a lot of places in the world, the governments are not exactly functioning pretty well versus the companies, the global companies that are within the countries and the local companies, because in some places, organizations get support, and in most organizations, they don't get support from government. So there is a very interesting psychological theory that is called nobody is coming, that says that you are an adult when you say that the problem or the challenge that are coming to your door is yours. Like, for example, a parent. If a kid is coming to him with a challenge, the parent is supposed to be there and support him with solving it because he is the adult. But in many cases, nobody is coming. Nobody is coming to support you for help, and you're supposed to be the grown-up, the mature, natural something that is holding the challenge when it's coming to your door. And I think that before the coronavirus time, we knew already that companies cannot really rely on somebody else, if it's stakeholders or politicians. But I think that in this past year, we know for sure that nobody is coming. The organization is supposed to be on their feet by itself and solve a lot of challenges that are coming to their doors. So everything that has to do with the equilibrium in between governments and organizations is changing as well. So as I said before, it's not that we didn't see it before. The VUCA was made up by the United States Army in the beginning of the 20s, but now it's here for real and it's speeding up. So the timeline is changing, and we don't talk about linear changes, we talk about chaotical transformations, and this is what we see in organizations, and it's becoming faster and faster, faster and faster, in each and every second while we speak.
That's a fantastic overview, Nili, and I noticed you added one more axis. So let's go through each one, and perhaps you can give us an example of something that represents, or maybe you have worked with. How did you solve for something like that? So let's take it one by one. So the first, we're talking about the top 5 polarities that we need to balance, or not balance, as you say, but leverage perhaps, to dance with, to find equilibrium with. And the first you had mentioned was technology and people. So as you say, in a nutshell, give the machines all the repeatable work and stay focused on the added value of the human. So give us an example. Have you seen this happen anywhere? Who's doing this well or not so well?
First of all, I must say that it's a challenge that everybody is facing. So in each and every organization I'm working with, this is the question. And we talk about hybrid processes, which means that in each and every organization, we have human, we have technology, and we have to find the right combination for the specific organization. That's what we call hybrid organization. So in one organization that I saw it very well, I saw that the management gathered together people from all over the organization to try to figure out which of the processes within the organizations are going to be computerized and which one of the processes are going to remain, I would say, human focused. And as you said just now, they decided to take 2 or 3 processes that are repeatable, things that you don't have to think, you just have to do. You just have to deliver, to act. It's usually things that have to do with questions and answers that are repeatable. It was a service organization, so everything that has to do with repeatable answers to the customers, 80% of the questions and answers in between the organization to the customer were the same questions and answers. So they computerized this. It's a railway company. And so they computerized this with an answering machine, with an AI solution. And then only 20% of the questions and answers that were the out of the box, the extreme, and not the normal knowledge came to a human answer, which means you are calling me, I'm answering you as a machine, artificial intelligence. And if the artificial intelligence do not have the answers to these questions, you are moving to a human person who is sitting there and giving you the 20% of the answers. And it's working up very well. And the people there were not fired, because you could take the people and fire them, but this specific company send them to a real school to teach them stuff that they couldn't do before, but the company needs the day after. So it's rescaling, I would say, relearning, rescaling. So the computer replaced people, but these people were not replaced. They were just moving to something else.
Fabulous example. So moving to the next polarity, groups versus and individuals. So in a nutshell, learn how to work together as teams and paying respect to diversity of all kind, leaving the ego on the side. Learn to work right with respect to everybody's added value, and even turning your competitors to your co-opetition instead of your competition. So give us an example of this one, groups and individual balancing or leveraging.
This I like very much, because there is one company that I'm working with. It's a credit card company, it's finance. They decided that they're going to have and amazing things called shadow management. And the meaning by shadow management is that the management in this specific organization, unfortunately, it is until today males that are coming from the same schools, that have more or less the same experience, so they could look at reality from the same point of view. And unfortunately, the same old point of view is not exactly working in those days. It's like Albert Einstein said, that if you're going to go to the same places in the same way, you're going to get only the outcomes that you got until today. So it's madness. So they decided to collect from all over the company a diverse group. And when I say diverse, I mean gender, age, verticals, profession, everything that has to do with diversity. So they collected something like 16 people that are coming from all over the company, and it is called the shadow management. And each and every time, and it was working pretty well through the coronavirus time, that every time that they had to have a difficult decision, they decided to bring this shadow management on board, and they showed them exactly the same facts and figures slideshow that they showed the management. So the management had to have a decision, for example, if to continue with the lockdown, everybody is at home, or to come back to work in capsules, for example. So they saw the same facts and figures to the shadow management with all these diverse people, and they got all the answers that are out of the box from a completely different point of view. And I cannot really tell you that each and every time when they had different answers, they took the answers of the diversity group, but at least they listened. At least they asked and they listened. And I can recall at least 2 times that the shadow management had a different answer to the question, and they did take their answers. So this is something that people can do.
Great example. Moving to the third polarity, you talk about the real world and the virtual world, and how do we leverage both. So you said, in a nutshell, it's the hybrid model. What is the right balance between working remotely and working in a real place? And that goes also to the learning processes, and how do you also build up communities uh, between the real world and the virtual world. So give us some example of a company that's done this well, and how did they do that?
So this is the $1 million question, because everything that has to do with being a tribe is part of cultures, and building communities was a question on the table even before the COVID-19. So there is no one question and there is no one answer, because global organizations had been working remotely, virtually, long time ago. And I even can remember me meeting you in person after we spoke online for a long time. And it's pure happiness to hug, to look at the eye, to make a human contact. It's really, really important. And I can tell you that I can see everything in a very, very big range of solutions, but I will give you one. Um, it's one school that I'm working with that decided only last week that after 8 months that people didn't see each other, they decided that they're going to meet in the open air. So we go back to old Greek, when the philosophers there decided to teach not in a class, but under a tree in the forest. So they decided to bring each day groups of 20, because that's what is allowed in Israel, to sit down together once a week under a tree, out of the organization, out of the classes, and just talk every time on something different. And they decided to do a kind of a mixture. So each and every week, the groups that are going to work under the trees are mixed groups with different dimensions to the group and different questions to the conversation. So the building is still locked down, and it's going to be locked down until the end of December, at least. But they decided to move to trees, to forests. I don't know what's going to be happening while the rain is coming, but now it was kind of magic. People met, and we appreciated how important human connections are to our health, personal health, organizational health, physical health, and of course, mental health.
Great example, Neely. I can just imagine, the workplace under the trees. It's such a innovative, fun way to break the either or dichotomy and find a third better solution. You know, uh, that's why I love polarity thinking. That there's always a third sweet spot. It's never an either or. There is a both and solution, which is even better than the either or solution.
And of course,
So,
everybody everywhere learned how to work with Zoom. It is something that
yes,
was there. This platform was there before, for a long
yes,
time ago. The Teams, the Zoom, everything. But now all of us feel comfortable and natural to work with it. It's a
yes.
challenge, but it's working.
Totally. No, I have had as incredibly transformative conversations over Zoom as I've had in person. So the human consciousness seems to have the ability to transcend time and space and
Absolutely.
connect. So that's something perhaps we have learned through the crisis, which is nice to know. We still love the human contact, but we can experience the human connection even through the airwaves, so to speak, right, through the internet.
I
So
can love
moving to
you and adore you, even if I don't see you or I see you
yes,
only virtual. Tender
yes,
love and care is something
yes,
that people really need within organizations. And I know that managers that I worked with were terrified. How can they do it? It's not only being authoritative when you are a manager, it's being in loving and caring to people that are terrified from the disease and from the changes and from the chaos. And almost everybody, I think, discovered that it's not exactly the same when you hug somebody or you hug somebody virtually, but you can do an hybrid model, and if necessary, for long period.
so that actually brings us to your fourth polarity, which you talk about the left brain, the IQ, and the right brain, the heart. So analytical thinking versus emotions and values, emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. So people have been forced to figure that out, right? So give us some examples where you've seen people being able to do this polarity better.
So I will talk about healthcare because it's kind of jumping up and it's important. I work with all the medication organization in Israel, with all the hospitals and everything that has to do with health. And it was really the, the biggest advantage ever because you can talk to people, but you cannot really take care of people via Zoom or Teams. So they were challenged with how to take care of other people that are sick or terrified, psychologically sick from far distance. And it was amazing because you have these left brain activities of changing processes, writing new protocols, having these team meetings every morning to discuss the challenges and support each other. Everything that has to do with strategical planning, execution, facts and figures. I think that in less than a week, all the hospitals in Israel were on their feet with all these new procedures of crisis management, and they did it amazingly. I was amazed by the fact that they did it so quickly. They wrote the protocols, they brought up the new platforms to talk. Everything that has to do with the left brain was tick tock talk, and it was amazing. Everybody, not one hospital, not one healthcare system, everybody. They moved so fast. I was really amazed. And the right brain, everything that has to do with emotional intelligence, interactions, relationships took a while because you can take and adopt technology while you need it for survival very fast. It's arriving mode. So okay, we have the technology. The procedures we must have. You have to manage an organization. So everything that has to do with delivery and execution was like this. Everything that has to do with how to maintain relationship, how to interact with compassion via Zoom took a while. So we just had to teach everybody, I mean consultancy companies and the internal OD and HR managers, how to be, first of all, resilient enough to contain others. And after I took care of myself and took care of my resilience, I can be flexible enough and compassionate enough to open my heart, open my arms, and hug people via Zoom meetings. And amazingly, it works as well because people, and they do, we as the human race, we do care about other people. We are all one. So it took a while, it took several months, I think, but these procedures and processes that we built with this healthcare organization contained also feelings and interactions that are not sitting on to-do lists, but on how are you? How do you feel? What do you need from me as a manager? What do you need from me as an HR? And what do you need from me as an organization? And a lot of solutions came out of it that are not exactly this delivery and execution, but like, for example, um, doctors that are women and have little children at home. They need somebody to take off of their children. So this specific organization recruit the army to take care of the kids of the doctors that went to the hospital to take care of the coronavirus patients and be sure and quiet that their children are in good hands. So the soldiers.
Such a beautiful example, Nili. And I'm smiling because you know my book Shakti Leadership is precisely about this. How do we leverage both our feminine and our masculine nature to come into our full power and effectiveness? And because we have all been trained in the masculine style, when it comes to left brain and efficiency and processes, we can get it like that. But it's as if this COVID pandemic has forced us on a crash course to learning our emotional intelligence and feminine leadership skills.
So
But from what you're telling me, people
integration.
have learned it. They rose to the occasion, right? Which is great to hear.
And this is something which I spoke about before, the nobody is coming fact.
Yeah.
I live by this code that nobody is coming, according to the fact that if somebody is challenging me or bringing to my table something that I have to take care of, I'm taking care of it. But it's kind of being humble and knowing that, of course, I'm very responsible, but I cannot rule the world. So if I have some dozens of feminine doctors in the hospitals that we need them in the hospital in this specific minute, I cannot take care of it as a consultant or as a manager or even as an organization, but I can go and ask for help. You just have to think, what do you need? So I need people to take care of the children of these feminine doctors because they have to take care of somebody else now. So bring aboard the army. In Israel, the army is part of the nation, and taking care of these children, of these doctors who could take care of these patients who might be the parents of these soldiers that they can't take care of the kids. It's community. So we are creating new communities, and this is co-opetition, collaboration, whatever you want to call it, is being one, is the whole of the one.
And this is the feminine, right? So the masculine is about individual perfection, which is needed for the whole to rise and evolve. But the feminine is about gathering as you go, taking everyone along, learning to take care of each other, and discovering that we are all one, we are all interdependent. And then activating that and acting on that is what Israel seems to have done. So I love this story. It's such a beautiful example. moving to your last polarity, you called out how do we leverage and find the equilibrium between global and local. So what's the added value of the global arena for our business? And what is, by our choice, the respect for the local added values and culture and resources, etc. So how have you seen this time in COVID leverage the global and the local to get the best of both?
I think that first of all, when China was closed in Israel, it was a big disaster because we have a lot of factories here that are importing materials, work, whatever, goods from China. And when the borders of China were closed, organizations had to find suppliers from elsewhere in the world according to their targets, not only because of money wise, but because we produce here medication, food, or whatever. And I think that the global parts here are that I know a lot of organizations that found like these suppliers from different places in the world that might be even after the coronavirus times better than what was happening in China, according to the quality, according to the quantity, according to the price, according to the value for money. So I think that the globalization is giving us a huge gift to import things that we need from other countries that are better than us in whatever. It's diversity again, because you have the diversity in micro level among people that we're different. And because we are different, we can give each other a lot of gifts according to points of view, knowledge, feelings, whatever. And it goes to high level perception in countries that in one country you have agriculture, in one country you have technology, in one country you have both or whatever. And the globalization is giving us a huge amount of gestalt that 1 plus 1 is 3. So this is the globalization and what it brings to our table. And in some cases, learning from other countries how to hold the COVID-19 with the lockdown, with the capsules, with the vaccine, whatever that is, but knowledge that it's transforming in between the countries is supporting everybody a lot because the organization is a community, a country is a community, but also the planet is a community. Like, for example, a virus cannot read the sign, be aware it's a border here. So we are all one here as well from another perspective. And the local is important because when you are in a crisis mode, it's really helping to go back to communities. Like, for example, in the settlement I live, in the first day of the first lockdown, we're now in between the second and the third, I suppose. People just gathered together via Zoom virtually to support the old people, the sick people, the retarded people, the children that didn't have computers to learn from home. So communities are very important and supporting each other is very important. And it goes from the people to the neighborhood, to the settlement, to the country, to the organization, to the whole world. So the globalization is laying upon the fact that we know again that we're all one. It's just acting that way.
Beautiful, Nili. I've always admired Israel for so many reasons, and I've also envied Israel for some. For example, India is 1.3 billion people. So when anything you do is like a drop in the ocean. And when you're a country the size of Israel, what's your population currently?
9 million people.
Right. So
It's
that
a
is like
village in India, a village,
it's a
one village.
it's a suburb of Mumbai, okay, where I live. And if you have 9 million people of super smart capacities, because that's what, Israeli people are, having gone through their hero's journey and come out stronger and, incredibly intelligent, hardworking people. When you put in your effort and you put in your collective mind and heart, you achieve miracles. And then with 9 million, it is manageable, it is trackable. it's fantastic. It's the right size. It's not too small and it's not too big. So I've always had this deep desire for an Indo-Israeli bridge. What can we learn from each other? What can we give each other? And yeah, it would be, if India can turn itself into small little Israels,
Mm.
and manage itself the way Israel seems to have managed a crisis such as COVID. The other thing I know makes a big difference is the culture of a country or an organization. Now, there is something very common to the Indian and Israeli culture. Family is a very, very strong core unit, and it's all about looking after your elders, looking after your children. So that that deep commitment to family and community is of course a feminine thing, and it bears huge dividends, right? From what I can see, it's sometimes a system is not efficient, but it can be resilient because of these loose bonds, which are actually quite strong between people.
But I can
um,
assure you that we have our own challenges. Nothing is perfect anywhere. And yes, we are in the right size to contain ourselves. It's a very diverse country because it's a country of immigrants. It's also a very conservative country because we are a religious country. But yes, the feminine sides in this COVID-19 period really raised its head and supported a lot people, communities, and organizations. Uh, but we do have our challenges.
oh,
That's a different
absolutely.
conversation.
Yes, yes, that's a separate conversation. And but all of it ultimately is testimony to the human spirit and its capacity for uh, rising above challenges and finding better versions of themselves in the process. So, uh, all in all, would you agree with me that COVID has also been a blessing in many ways?
I think that in each and every phenomena, there is a curse and there is the blessing at the same time. So I cannot say about the COVID-19 that it's only a blessing. I think that it's real life. It's a phenomena and it has its blessings and it has its challenges. And what is our responsibility is to adopt and to hug the blessings and ignore the curses, or to use the curses as lessons to become a better self of us.
Yeah. No, that's nicely said. And I'm just tying this back to close on the Shakti leadership model, which draws from the hero's journey, which says every crisis is an opportunity for transformation. And if you can transform, then it becomes the blessing, it becomes the gift, and you bring the elixir back to the world and save the world in some way. So, with this, I'm really grateful to you, Nili, for having in such a short time shared some very powerful, practical insights and stories on these top 5 polarities that need to be attended to and leveraged uh, in order to really move through this pandemic time and come out in a better place because of it. So thank you so much, Nili. Any last insight or thought you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes, I would like to share that one of my blessings in the COVID-19 lockdown, the last lockdown, is that I translated some of my works to English because I'm writing in Israeli in Hebrew, and I have profile in a blog website that is called Medium. So if you can write down my name, Nili Goldfein, you can see the articles that are sharing a lot of knowledge and test cases of the things that I see and experience as my work as a consultant. So you're most welcome to come into my blog and read more. And if you have any questions or you want to, whatever, a conversation to manage, please feel free. I feel part of the Shakti leadership community. And thank you, Nilima, for holding such a community for such a long time. It's really inspireful.
Thanks, Nili. And you will share with me your details on how they can contact you, and we'll put it along with this. This recording will go out on YouTube, and it can be shared with the public. So we will put your details there as well.
I will send you everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nili. Bye now.